Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. This is Adrian Daniel. I'm your host, and this is Multifamily Chronicles. Today, we have not one, not two, but three guests. And I'm going to start with our first guest, Tara Samuels. Welcome to the show, Tara.
Thank you, Adrian. It's actually good to be back on this show. I feel like we've been doing this for a few years now.
Yes, we are. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Tara, and I would really like for you to share a little bit about your mentor matchmaking program.
Yeah, say that 10 times fast, right?
No, don't make me say it again.
So I like to joke that by day, I help apartments become smart. And then by night, I play this wonderful role of mentor matchmaking in the multifamily industry. And just quick personal stats. I am married to someone who is also in the industry, my husband, Rob. We have a blended family of three. I just moved to Atlanta last summer from Chicago, where I was born and raised. So thick crust pizza all the way for me. Our kids are, they're great. They keep us busy. But when I don't have the kids at home, I spend my time on my passion project, which is mentorship. So I've had this networking group called Amplified Connections for 10 years. And we launched in January of this year a subset of that called Multifamily Mentor Matchmaking. So that is what I spend my time on, is smart apartments and matchmaking. And it keeps me busy.
Let's go to Brock. Brock, welcome to the show. You're next.
Oh, appreciate it. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was interesting as I was listening to Tara. I was thinking to myself, and it's shocking to say the words out loud, but I've been in the industry nearly 30 years, actually, and been fortunate enough to work for some incredible brands in the space and work with some really wonderful people. And it is true about our industry, right? Once you sort of get immersed in it, it does become, part of your blood. And so I've thoroughly enjoyed that. I'm the CRO of LeaseHawk today. So we're squarely in the emerging AI space and all the things that are happening in that category. And it's interesting to think about that, because over this whole time in the multifamily space, I can kind of see the evolution of tech and innovation, and this industry has certainly exploded. And even things like podcasts, right, and that are industry specific, I think are wonderful education opportunities for the industry. Things like this mentor program, I think, are really rewarding for everyone that's involved. And I'm thankful for the evolution that I've experienced personally in the space, and appreciate you having me on today.
Ariel Guzman, you're next, sir. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, so my name's Ariel. I'm based out of New Jersey. I've been in the multifamily space for about 8 years on the operations side. So I worked for Windsor Communities, Avalon Bay, and Greystar. I actually started in the industry as an intern, and I'm one of the very few that actually went into the industry after I graduated college, knowing that property management is what I wanted to do. So couldn't say that when I was in college, but things develop and change as time goes on. But in the last year, I actually made a big career change in the multifamily space and joined the supplier side. So it's been a super fun journey the past year, and being a part of this mentorship program, and I'm sure we'll dive into that, has created a lot of benefits for me in the space. So I'm really excited to dive in. But thank you so much for having me on the show.
Absolutely, it's great to have you all. So I wanted to say this to the audience out there. The main reason why we're all here together, it's Tara's program, and it's the mentor matchmaking, right, in multifamily. Tara, I want you to tell us a little bit about how this idea came about and how this idea evolved, and how did you get to have, from January to right now, 215 members. That's an amazing accomplishment.
So what I'll tell you is there's clearly a need, and I'll tell you where I'm humbled is that the growth right now is, I send out once a week all the new members that have joined, and when I find out that most members are now coming from referral, it's just warms my heart. So As I mentioned in the beginning, I started a networking group just niched for multifamily, purely based in Chicago, where I lived, where I worked for many, many years. I too have been in this industry a really long time. And there was, to me, always such a need for intimacy in networking. I think it's great that we have some amazing associations, national and regional, which I've been a part of them for 20 plus years. I always felt there was a disconnect because it can be so overwhelming to walk into any networking event, especially on a grander scale. If you have the intention of forming networking connections, finding a mentor, it can be so intimidating. And so that's why I started Amplified Connections. But then I sat for years on this, to be honest with you, Adrian. I've talked about this before. I was kind of scared because I felt like, oh my gosh, well, what if people think like, what do you know about mentorship, Tara? Like you've never had a mentorship group. There's no playbook. There really wasn't anything that I had to refer to. And so finally, after doing what I was doing a lot of self-work, getting out of my own way, right? With the help of, I would say, James Clear, Atomic Habits, and just kind of getting some courage. I took an idea of mentorship and said, what if we made it easier and kind of made it a matchmaking process where I basically supply the platform and I can allow people to match themselves, or if they don't feel comfortable, I can do the hard part, right? Which is making the introduction, breaking the ice. And so really it was just a need. I looked around for years and didn't quite see anything like this in our industry. And so I said, well, why not me? Why, I'll just get off my behind and figure it out. And my goal was like, if I could just get 10 people, that means 5 people and 5 people could potentially be paired up, and then woo. But man, it has gone gangbusters. And honestly, if it grows any faster, it could be overwhelming because right now it's manageable. Like I said, I do this nights and weekends. So it can be tough, but that's really how it was born. And right here with Brock and Ariel, this is one of the reasons why I did this, is to watch something like this happen. So
yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that the two of them are, they have been paired via your platform, your program, right? Mentor, mentee. And I do want to go to Brock next and ask you, how did you decide to become a mentor and what motivates you to continue mentoring others?
It's a great question. I hadn't actually considered it, in general, other than, just from time to time thinking that, I would look for an opportunity where possible to give back to them, as many have done for me in my career. And I think initially I probably saw, maybe probably was a LinkedIn post, or an invite to join. And what is interesting is even as I sit here today, the thought that I am or could provide value as a mentor always seems a bit daunting, because I feel like I'm learning myself, and I still feel like I'm looking for avenues and ways to improve or see things differently or have a different experience. So the thought that I could possibly be that vehicle for somebody else was daunting, but I recognize it with a long career in this industry and having a lot of experiences and knowing how much I benefited from those that had greater tenure experience than I did, that if I could give back, and there was some things that you often forget the things that until they come rolling out of your mouth sometimes, and that happens a lot when Ariel and I are chatting. You realize that there is sort of experiences that you can share that will help shape someone else's plan or approach or career. And so I think that was really interesting for me, but never really knew or had the vehicle with which to do that. So this program and group has allowed for that, and I think as I said, I've really enjoyed the process, and I find that I'm learning from Ariel as much as hopefully he's picking up from me along the way.
Learning from him, that's very interesting. I'm gonna have a follow-up question. I'm gonna address that to Tara a little later on. So we're going to Ariel next, and I want to ask you what motivates you to seek out a mentor, And what were your expectations when starting the mentorship relationship, this relationship?
Sure, yeah. So I've always had so many mentors throughout my multifamily career. I found that a lot of them were kind of either with the company that I was with, I was offering some kind of mentorship program, which was great from an onboarding perspective. I've also had a lot of informal mentors within organizations. So I've had a lot of, I guess, planned out mentorship programs where I didn't have one where I could just have a kind of a safe space, if you will, or one that I wanted to kind of create what value I was looking out of it. So for me, a big thing was, changing from the operation side to the supplier side. So my approach to a mentor was I wanted somebody who was very successful in the supplier side in multifamily, and what better person than Brock? So Tara had this great platform of amazing individuals that, signed up that were interested in becoming a mentor. And as soon as I saw Brock, it piqued my interest of like, wow, what a, had such a great career, and I know I could learn a lot from him. And it's one of those things where you don't know what you don't know. We talk about that quite a bit. So I knew that he was gonna have a wealth of knowledge to share with me as I navigate a whole new world, if you will, on the supplier side. So it's been nice having my expectations. We're kind of just having a space where we could talk about what is on my mind that week, that month, and for Brock as well. Just help me understand the industry a little better from a different perspective, because I had tunnel vision for about 8 years being on the operations side. So I needed to kind of expand my vision and be more open to, new ventures. So this platform allowed me to do that.
Going back to Tara right now, and I have a question, right? I'm picking up on something that Brock just said, and he said that I'm also learning myself from Ariel. So mentorship, it's really not a one-way street, is it? It's
No.
really, it's a two-way street, right? So I like for you to give us your take on this two-way street, and then also the concept of reversed mentorship, because this was, you were the first person that spoke about that. I never heard of this term before, and would you like to elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, I'll talk about reverse mentorship just because it's really hot in our group right now. We actually, it's come up. We have, I'll give you just a side note. We have structured calls a couple times a month since the beginning of the year. And what I love about this group is I solicit the people of this group to talk about something that they're passionate about so we can learn from them. So we have our informal meet and greet, and then the other half of that call is someone stepping up and saying, I'm really passionate about blank. I would love to share that with the group. And so to me, this group is about empowerment. And so I think there was some old-fashioned, kind of archaic look at mentorship, which we're trying to disrupt, which is, oh, I think I can only have a mentor like Brock because he's been in the industry for 3 decades. It makes sense to only learn from him. Well, we have so much to learn from folks who we have defined, for our group, we've defined a reverse mentor as someone who's been in the industry 5 years or less. There is just an amazing wealth of perspective that we are missing if we don't kind of flip the script, turn the tables, if you will. So that is one of the things that I said, you know what, gosh, we're talking about this quite a bit. And as I'm tracking all of the folks who come in, one part of their questionnaire is finding out how long have you been in this industry? And, what are the qualities of a good mentor? There's some things like that we talk about and ask. And so just kind of over time, as we're coming together, the group has kind of come to a consensus where, yeah, you know what, I'd love to learn. Like Ariel's one of the prime examples. Like, even though he's been in the industry 8+ years, he has now both sides of the table, owner manager side, and now on the supplier side. What an amazing way to learn is to just kind of flip the script. So we're actually launching, we now have a subcommittee for reverse mentorship within this group. I have 2 co-chairs because I cannot do this by myself. And we are going to start creating a series. And we realize that reverse mentorship is not something that can just be done in a one and done 1 hour. So I don't even know what it really looks like yet. We actually are fresh off of a call about that, but it is a two-way street. To address your first question, what I like too, and I'll let these guys speak to how they've structured this, but what I like about this is two things. You can create your entire cadence. It's not structured to the point where I tell these members you have to have this many calls this often. Mentorship also could be something that's only 3 or 4 months. It doesn't have to be, oh my gosh, I'm basically with Brock for how long? Like, am I allowed to change? Am I allowed to get somebody new? Can I have more than one mentor? So the two-way street component is communication and expectation, and also accountability, right? Like if Ariel doesn't show up his best for Brock, that's a waste of time. And also on the flip side, if Brock doesn't show up for Ariel, then it's like, okay, well, what are we doing? That's a disservice. But also there's something I want to mention that Ariel talked about, which is most of the people that are part of this group that are with a company, supplier or owner manager, there are no mentorship programs. Or if there is, what if you're matched with somebody in your own company that you don't really jive with? Then what? You know, you don't want to speak up and be like, well, I don't really like the mentor you put me with, because you don't want to create waves within your own company. But I wanted to have an outlet for people who just want to have a comfortable conversation, maybe about their current role that they can't necessarily do with somebody at their own company. So hopefully I've answered both those questions for you.
You did, and it's something that I do want to say. If certain companies do have a mentorship program, to me, mentorship is not something that should come from the very top. You should make resources available, and people should go there voluntarily. You shouldn't say, you're a new employee, we're gonna mentor you, right? We're gonna pick a mentor, or like we're gonna let you pick a mentor. You need to be mentored. There's other ways to do, right? Peer coaching, which in a way I think is similar to mentoring, but it's really not that. But I don't think that a company just like imposing on people, telling them that they must find mentors to pair with, because that's the program that we have out here, is something that's very successful. It has to come from within, right? You have to want to have a mentor. If you don't want to have a mentor and someone tells you like you must have a mentor, like that's like a job application, I don't think that's just something that will be of an effect. It's gonna make an impact. So I want to ask you, Brock, do you agree with this? What's your take on this?
Yeah, no, I think that's true, and I will say even from the outset, when I can't remember if it came via the group or Ariel directly, but as we got sort of put together, I purposely did not kind of arrive with any specific plan or approach or structure, because as I think about my own experience in learning, whether officially via mentor or even organically with just people of influence, often the approach and the things that I gleaned from each were different depending on either their experience or their perspective of things. And I think Ariel was a really interesting connection in the sense that he does have the operational background, but it was intriguing for me that he was new to the supplier side, and it is different in many ways. And I think when we started out, kind of, Ariel, correct me, it was sort of April, May-ish, I think.
Yeah, April timeframe, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. And, and so we, our first handful of conversations were just that, more conversational about, perspectives, experience, things we see, things we're looking forward to. At the time, it was going to be Ariel's first trip to NAA as a supplier, right? And that can be overwhelming in and of itself. So we talk a bit about that. And then I think now we're finding ourselves arriving at, areas of like, okay, what can we dig into more that'll help, whether it be, driving interest or creating awareness, or we talk a lot about personal brands too. I've spent a long time in this industry, doing a lot of sort of forward thinking sessions, presentations, webcast, that sort of stuff. And I think that's incredibly valuable, both for your own personal growth as well as awareness for the brand that you represent, and your network. And so a lot of those things happen organically. And I think we're, as we've talked more, we're finding ourselves arriving more at, plans or thoughts that we can focus on. But I think if you're force feeding a certain approach or direction, likely not going to be successful, or not met with the level of I think benefit that you'd be hoping for.
What's your take on this, Ariel?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I actually love that we didn't have like a planned agenda, to begin with. I went into that kind of wanting a safe space and just be able to kind of just like talk openly and what's going on at that time. So we tend to start the call on one subject and we end the call on a completely different subject because it kind of, depends on what's going on in that particular time. But I think it's super rewarding, and to Brock's point, we dive into certain subjects a little more depending on, what our interests are at that given time. And he's always has such interesting and great perspectives because I tend to be quite stubborn in nature. And he helps me kind of think, less a tunnel vision, and the diversity of thought is huge as well. So it's been super impactful from that standpoint.
Adrian, can I actually add something to what Ariel was talking about? And Brock, you mentioned this, and it just kind of some feedback, testament to both of you. And I don't know if this is something you talked about at or during one of your calls, but the way for it being your first NAA, the way you was so impressionable. And like, granted, you have a really great personality, and some people are super uncomfortable like coming out of their shell. You're either an introvert, an ambivert, an extrovert. I'm actually an ambivert. I'm not very extroverted all the time. And so I don't know if you guys had this discussion, but the trade show etiquette, large conferences, that's a topic that's discussed in our group quite often. But I just want to commend you because you did such a great job. People were talking about you and they're like, oh my God, did you meet that guy Ariel, like from Snapped? He's awesome. Like, so it's just one of those things. I don't know if you learned that or if he gave you any tips and tricks, but I just wanted to share that with you, that when you leave a memory like that with people, it's awesome.
Nah, he's a natural.
Yeah.
Nothing I imparted on him.
Oh, stop. No, but we did talk about that though. Pre-NAA, we talked post-NAA, and it was it was a great experience. I had an amazing, phenomenal time. And I saw both you and Adrian for the first time in person during NAA. So that was a highlight as well. Yeah.
I have pictures to prove it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So back to you, Tara. You said that if it gets too overwhelming, you might need to do something about it. Now, are you taking applicants? Are you accepting help? What's your current status? You are, okay? So, and if you are, just tell us about how you want this to happen. How do you envision it happening?
I have a couple of goals. Thanks for asking that, because sometimes until you vocalize it, you don't really know that you need help. Like you guys said, you don't know what you don't know, right? I mean, no playbook. I've only got, what do we have, 7 months under our belt with this program so far. But I will say that one of the things, Ariel said he's stubborn. One of the things I'm learning as a person with personal growth is delegation, right? Yes, this is my group, but it's not my group. This group is really about the members. And so what I'm loving is that I have a 2-week-long vacation coming up in October. The very first thought I had was, oh, well, I guess we're not going to have any calls during that time. No, that's an idiotic thing to say. Why don't I just get my own members to host the calls? Like, I don't have to be on them. Really, what I'm looking to do is have this momentum continue. However, I want to stay involved, of course, because my main goal is by the end of the year to have 300 members. I think that's a sizable, tangible goal. 3 years from now, I am manifesting that we are going to have our own mentorship conference at some place, somehow. And the only way I can get there, Adrian, is if members like this step up and say, how can I help? And so I can't tell you how many people have said, Tara, why are you trying to do this yourself? Like, I can help you do this. I can help you do that. So I've learned to kind of let some of that go and use the resources within this group. My gosh, we have some amazing, smart people in this group. It's awe-inspiring, honestly. If you take a look at the members, it's unbelievable the talent we have in this group. So I am going to continue to ask for help, which is hard, but why not allow the people who are here already and passionate to lead lead the way. I mean, that's what it's about.
This group is so awesome that every time I talk to you about it, I feel guilty because I don't get to participate. Like I have the invites, I just missed. There's something else going on. I got too much stuff going on. Maybe that's a sign that I should slow down a little bit and find time for other things too, right? Like your group. But here's a suggestion, right? I think a group suggests a certain type of hierarchy. They're looking at the person that created it at the top. Here's an alternative, right? How about call it a platform? You offer the platform, and people don't necessarily think, hey, on a platform there's a hierarchy, just like Facebook, right? For example, it's just a place. It's a community, if you wish. It's a community where we get together and we just hang out, and we do what we like best, right? Mm-hmm. Mentors, mentees, whatever, versus the group. That's how I would see it, right? Yeah, make it a platform.
Well, and don't feel bad, because there has been a couple people who have spoken up and said, if it wasn't for Adrian, don't do yourself a disservice, because even though you haven't been on a lot of the calls, you have taken time out of your schedule to speak to some folks directly. I know you have, and you allow a lot of time. So you have already made an impression on several folks who have leaned on you, but also providing this call today, this podcast, is more than I can ask for, because it's going to be watched back by people who maybe are like, I don't really know if I want to be part of that group. I'm not sure. This is a great resource. So please do not sell yourself short.
I always feel guilty. I can't help myself. Right? I missed this one again, right? But you are right. I had people from the group and from outside. They're not on a group. Actually, I recommended them to to become part of your group.
I love that.
I told all the time, and some of them I have already signed up. I had to look at your members, but I don't know if they sign up because of me, or they just heard somewhere else. But in any case, I'm always happy when people reach out to me for advice, is to just refer them to your group too.
I appreciate that.
So next I want to go to Brock. And Brock, I wanted to ask you, when you set up your calls or your meetings with Ariel, do you have a method? Do you have a strategy? Do you have a structure? Are you putting some bullet points or whatever? Are you writing stuff down and say, this is what I want to accomplish today? Or is it just kind of the other way around? Let's just have this conversation and see where it takes us.
Probably a little bit of both, in the sense that not structured in the sense that I've got an agenda and we're gonna hit on this. However, and the way we do it is we've got a standing call, but of course I'm available, for anything else that should pop up along the way. But what I try to do is think about, okay, what did we touch on last time we were together? What were the things? So for example, we had a follow on NAA, for example. What were some of the things? What were the high points? What were some of the challenges, right? So we did that. Our last call, we talked a little bit about some of the things that are happening within the sales structure for Ariel and the way they're approaching sales strategy, account assignments, things I have a lot of experience in historically, and so able to kind of talk through, what are some of the positives for that, or what are some of the things that you can kind of work through. So then we get together next, there'll be, some time will have passed, Ariel will have had some experience in that. So we'll touch on that. So we're both focused on prior conversation and what sort of outcomes or opportunities have sprung from that. And then invariably there's then new things with which to build on towards the next call. So as Ariel mentioned, we usually start with kind of over here because that's where we left off, and we always end up, kind of somewhere else. And that could be a combination, right, of business initiatives, of goal setting, of network development. I know Ariel's got some goals around doing some more speaking and kind of presenting, and so those, which I would fully encourage. I think that rounds a person out in so many ways, and so we'll kind of build on the things we've talked about, mix in some new, and then maybe talk about some things to try to work towards between then and our next call that will be relative to the the things that were present that day or top of mind for Ariel that he's trying to work through.
Same question for you, Ariel. Are you making a list? Are you making, bullet points? This is what I want to accomplish. This call that I have with Brock, or it's kind of wing it, or is somewhere in between?
Yep, similar to Brock, it's kind of in between. I go into it thinking, having some kind of an idea of what categories I want to hit. And what I always end up finding is we start talking and then the hour like flies by. I mean, we're both like, oh, we have another meeting, like, because obviously we have day jobs. So it goes by so quick, which is awesome. But to Brock's point, he's always available, throughout the time in between our calls if anything else comes up. But yeah, I find that it's a hodgepodge of different scenarios. And our last call, we talked a little bit about personal branding as well, which was really beneficial to understand my cadence and things like that as I kind of get more into like the world of LinkedIn, because I've had LinkedIn obviously for years, but I haven't really utilized the platform to its fullest advantage. So I plan to do that this year. So you'll be seeing more posts, which I know actually prompted probably this call as well, which is awesome. So just being more active on there and building up my personal brand as I develop on the supplier side of multifamily.
Yeah, Adrian, I need to give him a plug because about a week ago, he posted it. To be honest, the way you summarized mentorship, Ariel he posed with a picture with Brock, but he really went down a list of things that he views in mentorship, what's successful, just kind of tips and tricks, and just really a thoughtful post that I think if anyone is looking, whether they join this group or not is irrelevant, but if they're looking on some tips and tricks on mentorship and how to get the best out of that relationship, go find that post from him, because it is, Ariel, I'm going to use your word, it's a gem, right? You like to talk about your gems, your branding, but I'm telling you, I have saved it, and it had a lot of views and interaction, but that's all I can ask for, right? Is that both parties get something out of it, and then we're all paying it forward to someone else in helping to make their road to mentorship easier.
I want to stay with you, Tara, and I know you described how this idea came about. You said that there was a need, right? But I'd like for you to share a story, a personal story of how a mentor has impacted you the most in your life, in your career. What was the most impactful experience that you had with a mentor?
Can I just tell you how crazy this is? I'm so passionate about mentorship. I just got goosebumps when you asked me that. Because if there's a couple things. One is there's a mentor who I have had for over 30 years. In fact, I'm flying back to Chicago in 2 weeks to go to his wedding. He is someone who taught me conviction and to speak up. And many people ask me, and he's in real estate, not in multifamily, but one of the things he provided for me that has never left my side is he saw, and I'm sure this is what Brock sees in Ariel, is like he saw things in me that I didn't necessarily see in myself, or he underscored, like, I'm like, well, I think I'm this. And he's like, no, you are that. You are this person. He helps me just kind of see my fullest potential. But the main thing I took away from that relationship, and I've never forgotten it, is to speak up, because you never know unless you actually say and like raise your hand. And who cares if someone is judging you? That's why it took me so long to start this group. I was so worried about like, well, what if Brock thinks it's stupid? Not picking on you, but and then I will say I'm going to plug somebody from the multifamily industry, someone who has I feel been a trailblazer for the female side of this industry, who doesn't often have a seat at the boardroom, or didn't back then. So I've been in the industry since the 90s. And Diana Petro from RMK Management, personal friend, she's been the president there for a long time, based in Chicago. This is another person who I have sat on 2 board positions at the Chicagoland Apartment Association with her. And just kind of off to the side, without her knowing, she was my mentor. I didn't ask her, but she unknowingly has been my mentor for like 15 plus years. We've developed a friendship. I've been vulnerable to tell her, like, hey, you have been one of my mentors. But she taught me, do not be afraid to have your ideas heard in a boardroom. It was very intimidating. My very first board position at the apartment association was when I was a property manager. And I was like, well, look at all these C-suites and they're all guys in a suit. Like, that's intimidating. Sometimes when you're outbalanced in gender and experience, it can be tough to speak up. And she's like, girl, if you don't say anything, then you don't really have you don't really deserve to sit here, do you? Like, because if you have something to share, I know you do, Tara talks a lot, you better speak up. And boy, I tell you what, without those two, the first gentleman, Michael Fine and Diana Petro, I would not be here without those two. So, and a lot of people ask me every day, like, what's your best advice? Speak up. Just speak up. You just don't know until you ask. And I don't care if it's at a restaurant, at an airport, at your job, speak up, be heard, and be okay with what the answer is. It's better to ask than to keep it to yourself. So those are my personal stories.
Amazing stories. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to Brock next. And Brock, I want to ask you to share a memorable success story regarding Ariel and that had a significant impact on both of you.
So we're probably early days in the sense that, we kind of just got together in April and May. So I don't know that I've got sort of that one thing that I could say but what I have seen and what I think is great is to see one, in life, I don't care where you are in your career, whether you're at the beginning, the middle, or at the end, or curiosity is key, right? The minute you're no longer curious, the minute you think you've done all you can, or you can't learn anything else, you're probably going to be probably stagnant in many ways. And I think from the moment I've met Ariel, he's curious, and that to me is a great foundation for success to build on. And I think with each time that we connect, and then seeing him out obviously live at NAA, and the thoughtful questions that he's thinking through as he's kind of navigating this new side on the supplier side. I don't know if there's any one thing I'm seeing, but I'm seeing, even though it's early, I'm seeing the foundation blocks sort of building for the things that frankly you can't teach, right? I mean, some things you just have to organically have, and then you can refine and evolve those skill sets based on the experiences with, whether it be mentors or others that you work with, or customers, or the like. I often think, if somebody were to x-ray me, I'd probably look like a puzzle, right? And the reason I say that is that all those pieces are people that I've encountered my whole life, both personally and professionally, both working together, customer set, all around. And I've picked up pieces along the way from so many. And so I don't know that there's ever one thing in particular, but it's that foundation, and then the building blocks of that continue to help you evolve and ultimately drive success.
I love that analogy, the puzzle. Like, I visualize it and it helps me relate to exactly what you said. So I can appreciate how you described that.
Brock is really great with the analogies. All day,
I
every
love
day.
analogies. It's so helpful.
helps you understand more, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen a drawing that kind of has that, right? It's about a parent, actually, that every time they raise or they mentor someone pulls a piece of the puzzle. And
love it.
It becomes them. That piece becomes part of them. So yeah, that's pretty powerful. Next, going to Ariel now. So can you describe a specific instance where Brock's guidance made a significant difference in your personal or professional life? I know that you're early in the game, in this mentorship game here, into this relationship, but something that really made an impact on you.
Yeah. So, I mean, so much to Brock's point too, I'm naturally curious, but he really allows me to kind of lean in more into my curiosity, which I love, and get comfortable with the uncomfortable. So I'm always kind of trying to put myself in situations or thinking about certain situations that initially I might be apprehensive about, but then kind of like thinking about Brock's, guidance and previous mentors as well, it kind of gives me that motivation to kind of push through and move forward. And one thing I tend to do as well, similar to Tara's point earlier, I used to, past tense, have limits for myself, and why, reach for the clouds when the stars are attainable, So talking to Brock, during our monthly calls, it kind of reignites constantly that drive to continue to be curious, getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, and putting myself first. And putting myself first is not selfish, and I've learned that too throughout the mentorship program, and connecting with Brock it's one of the best things you can do, is putting yourself first in a lot of situations, so you can provide the best value to others. So there's all, and that with everything I do, I kind of put that at the forefront, and I think it really allows me to grow in a lot of different ways.
I want to go to Tara next and start by saying this. I had a guest on a show here that said, you will not be able to disrupt an industry unless that person comes from outside the industry. And that stuck with me. This happened over a year ago. And I kept thinking about it. Does it really going to take someone from outside to disrupt this industry to bring it to 2023? Or can we hack the system? And here's my thinking. What if we just create a group of people that have been in the industry for 2 years or less and use their experiences outside of the industry to enrich our industry, and use this in a mentor-mentee type of way, right? Kind of like using your platform to say, who are the rookies here in property management, in multifamily? Raise your hand and get a group out there and say, hey, what are some things that you've learned outside of the industry that you think will bring value to our industry? So they don't have to actually be outsiders. They're actually in the industry. They haven't been here for long, but they have very valuable ideas that could be applied in multifamily in order for us to become better. And just to say the honest truth, to just catch up with times, because we have quite a bit to catch up as a industry with the world in general. So what are your thoughts on this?
I will say I don't agree with that person. I think that, yes, I understand the basis of that thought, but I would say if we could start with, to your point, the people we already have, you said 2 years or less, I think we just need more people to speak up and be okay with kind of challenging the status quo. I've been preaching for I don't know how long, how much we can learn from the hotel/hospitality industry, the restaurant industry, and apply those principles here. As a matter of fact, Adrian, I actually just talked about this yesterday. My husband and I were standing and at a new breakfast place. Completely, we were so hyped up. In the end, so disappointed, but we saw a lady come in with a Buc-ee's t-shirt. And he's like, Buc-ee's, like, it's just a gas station. And I'm like, no, it's an experience. And by the way, let me talk to you about how transparent they are about their salaries and how we can learn from that. And so, like, I think there's definitely so many things we can learn from someone outside our industry. Don't get me wrong, but I think we're missing the people who are already sitting here who are maybe afraid to speak up and challenge kind of the status quo, because I come from all those industries before I came to property management. So I have a lot of those ideas already sitting there. Maybe I just didn't feel like I had the right platform or place to kind of contribute my thoughts on that. So I appreciate where they're coming from, but I don't really agree.
Well, you're the exception, right? So you're an exception, one of the exceptions. I think the rule is, look, I've been in boardrooms, I've been at the properties, I've been everywhere from the very, I started as a groundskeeper, and I've seen all layers, all levels of the conversation. And when you go to a boardroom, you're part of a meeting, with C-suites, with executives, and you're hearing that the main thing is, hey, you guys been to other companies. what are they doing over there? How about saying like, what's your idea? How about encouraging? Instead, what I'm hearing over and over, it's what everybody else does. So you can't really create a disruption in an industry when you're always looking out for what everybody else does. And the example that I use the most in my LinkedIn post and in my rants is that people say we pay competitive wages, but nobody wants to work. Well, how do you define competitive wage? And they're telling me property down the street for me pays. I just ask them what they pay, and we're just paying the same way. Well, don't you realize that they have the same pain as you do? You're replicating a failing model. And that's exactly what it is. That is what I'm talking about. That's one of the things. The other thing is, when you're looking at, at the top level, a lot of the top positions have been occupied by the same people for a long time. And I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying that there's a level of comfort right there. They've done great for themselves, because if they wouldn't, they won't be in those positions today. Let me make it very clear. They've been very successful, but there's little incentive to change things, to bring things to, like we're thinking, to advance things, because the property is doing well, everybody's prospering, the stakeholders are good. Why should I take the extra risk? Like, what's in it for me? Maybe I put myself in a position to, put my job in jeopardy. So that's where I'm coming from when I'm saying this has to come from someone that's outside of the industry. Not to say that we don't have value, like we're not thinking forward. No, there's no such a thing. It's just the whole entire environment. And what I'm seeing for the most part is a thinking, right? It's kind of a group thing. I had to say, unfortunately, it's a group thing type of thing. Individuals have brilliant ideas, but when they see the group thing, when everybody's asking about the room, what everybody else is doing, you just kind of get discouraged. And like you said, you're not feeling comfortable saying, well, I'm not sure what everybody, but this is my experience. Let me just tell you how I could help. A very few people have that courage to step in and say that. So that's where I came from with this. Back to the mentorship. Right. So, question for Brock. What do you consider the most important qualities or skills of a mentor that they should be possessing in order to be effective?
Sir, at the baseline, I mean, obviously experience with which to share is certainly going to have some importance. The thing that comes to mind, though, as you ask that question, actually is more so the ability to listen than it is to speak, because the listening part is critical, right? To understand areas where, Ariel might be looking to improve, or areas that he feels less comfortable in, or that he could use some guidance and lean on maybe some experience that I've had. So I think listening is a critical component, rather than just sort of espousing all the things that you think are the way to do things, right? Especially when you've been at something for a while, you can easily, where we started our conversation was, I'm still learning too, and where that comes from is, while I've got a lot of experience with which to share, just because I've got refined ways of doing things doesn't necessarily mean they're always the right ones, or they can't be evolved or fine-tuned in some way. And so I'm learning and picking up from fresh approaches with a guy like Ariel, who's, sometimes doing things for the first time and approaching it in a way that's actually creative and thoughtful that I could wind into what I do. So I think the ability to listen is important. The ability to have perspective of where someone is in their career and the things that they may be, intrigued by, intimidated by, inspired by. And so I think being able to take those things in and then bring about the puzzle pieces, if you will, back to that analogy, that are going to resonate for that person and what they're trying to accomplish. So I think it's as much about the ability to comprehend and take in and provide perspective as it is to simply communicate, what your experience is in that moment.
Next question is for Ariel. how do you balance Brock's guidance and advice with your own ideas and aspirations?
Yeah, it's a great question. Because like I mentioned before, I'm pretty stubborn. So so I have to go into every conversation with it with an open mind. But Brock, this is so I think naturally. He really, when I come with to him with anything, he really never shuts anything down like right away. He's really great at just like providing feedback and just having a diversity of thought and different perspectives. To his point earlier, and it allows me more to kind of expand my range of thought. So that's kind of like been the most impactful for me, and I think that's what makes the our mentee and mentor relationship work so well, is that I come in with an open mind as much as I try to be, and Brock is able to kind of maneuver and just really provide guidance and insights without shutting anything down with what I come up with. So that's probably been the most meaningful and impactful so far, in our conversations.
I want to go to Tara next and ask you, Tara, and this doesn't really apply just to mentorship. I think we might have lost Ariel.
Oh, we lost Ariel.
I'll keep an eye on him. So when he wants to rejoin us,
Okay.
you still get him back in the room. So how do you overcome the generational gap in a particular situation or of a mentor-mentee situation, but in general in life, right? You're a matchmaker. You're the person that gets, brings people together. But a lot of times, right, people are not your age. Maybe they're, 20 years younger than you, or maybe 30 years older than you are. How do you bridge that generational gap, that age gap? How do you break the ice in a conversation?
Just to let you know, Ariel's computer auto restarted, so he's coming back in. He just texted me. I think he was hoping that we weren't going to finish without him. I would just say that's a really good question. I think just first off, acknowledging the fact that we can learn from other generations and being more open-minded. And really, for me, that starts with grabbing the people who are already members and kind of auditing it, right? And saying, oh my gosh, look, 25% of our members are 5 years or less in the industry. In fact, I think we're about even 10 years or less, 10 years or more. And what really has kind of drove the nail in the coffin for me to understand that we have so much to learn about the multi-generational gap is there are many, many, many of the members who have come in who have gone 10, 20, 30 years in their career without a mentor. And I think it's really, that to me was one of the most shocking things that I have seen in terms of the feedback from this group, is that, oh my God, I think I was always making an assumption that someone who like Brock is a C-suite level, and I'm not saying you don't have a mentor, I'm just saying someone that level coming in who's been in the industry 20 years and they're like, nope, I don't have a mentor. And I'm like, oh my gosh, first of all, that's how can I help? That's sad to me, because I know how meaningful the folks are within my life who I mentioned. But I think what's helping me to the multi-generational point is being a mom. I actually have a lot I can learn from my kids, and really not discounting and trying so hard to be present when they're home. 2 of them are off at college, so you don't get to see them much. But my gosh, they have so much we can learn from them, and they're not even in the industry. And so I think it's just being aware and recognizing and being open-minded that we have so much to learn. In fact, I think we can learn more the more experienced we are. I've been in the industry over 20 years, but the last time I worked on site was 2009. And for me, what I'm going to do to change that and speak up is I'm actually going to go work on site for a day or two and just not work, but sit back and watch, because gosh, so much has changed. I used to do work orders by hand. We used to use fax machines. I know people still use them, but you get the drift there. So I think just being hyper aware, and don't forget about your own kids, your nieces, nephews, whatever it is. We have more that we can learn from them and bring into this industry.
Very well said. Brock, how do you manage challenges in your relationship with Ariel? I'm sure that there's maybe some situations where not everything goes very smooth, right? How do you overcome what type of resources do you use to overcome challenges and just kind of move on?
Well, knock on wood, I don't think we've encountered any yet, which is good. But I think at some point, right, there's going to be those things where Ariel's come up against some either objections or things that are hindering what he might want or would think success looks like. And despite what I may be able to share, that that may not necessarily move the needle in a favorable way. But I think part of that is also understanding that challenges, whether they're things you encounter in your job or relationships or all the things you're trying to, there is no sort of clear-cut path to any level of success, right? And having challenges or even failures or getting the occasional no, especially Ariel's in sales as I am too, and you certainly don't win 100% of the time as much as I expect to do so. I've come to grips with the fact that that's not the case, but I will say the things that have not gone well are the things that I learned the most from, right? You take those lessons and you glean something from them that you can refine in what you do forward. And I would express the same thing to Ariel, that expect that there are going to be bumps or there are going to be challenges, whether that's in the things that we try to work on together or the things that you're trying to implement in your career. There's going to be bumps, there's going to be challenges, there's going to be failures, but those are it's somewhat cliche, and I'm certainly not the first one to say it, but those are learning moments with which to kind of continue to refine that foundation that you're building. And so to expect them and to push your way through them, because those are the things that will make you better in the end.
And Brock, I want to add something to what you said, because again, I'm visual. When you said bump, I keep visualizing a speed bump just in the road. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I think we all can learn from is those hiccups, those bumps that come in, maybe an opportunity for us to just slow down. Sometimes we're just like, oh my gosh, and we think that we have to get to a certain point in our career by a certain time, or get promoted, or get that next deal, or close that enterprise sale, whatever that looks like. But sometimes you need to hit that bump to force the car to slow down, and for you to be like, oh, that was a sign that I need to slow down for a minute, maybe take a breath and learn, and maybe change the perspective. So again, I take all of these words and I'm like, ooh, visual.
Ariel, could you share with us a situation where you had to go out of your comfort zone and reach out to Brock for advice?
Yeah. Internally, there's been a lot of change for me, more so than I'm used to, right, in certain organizations. So kind of going to Brock with my thoughts on how to tackle change. It's been interesting to kind of hear his perspective on how to maneuver and have those conversations. But to all of your points earlier, it's getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, and sometimes you have to slow down to speed up. So I think that has been something that has been come up quite a bit in our conversations. And I don't know if there's any particular challenges per se, to Brock's point, that we've encountered thus far, but when it does occur, I am excited for it, because I think you learn from every experience and every situation. So I think when you have that perspective that those hiccups do end up becoming learning opportunities, when you have that perspective, and you have, you go into and you lean into failure, if you will, I think you come out stronger every time. So that's something that I've noted as well.
we're about to come to an end with our conversation today. So in closing, I want to give you the opportunity to answer a question you wish I would have asked and I didn't, or say something, you didn't have the opportunity to say. And, now is the opportunity. So, and then last, just please tell the audience how to get a hold of you, how they could contact you. So Tara, you go first.
Can I actually go last? My internet connection is unstable right now, and I'm hoping it fixes itself. Can you guys hear? Okay, is the storm.
Let's go to Brock.
Okay.
Any final thoughts, and how could the audience get a hold of you?
So firstly, I appreciate the opportunity to join today, and probably the easiest is to find me at Brock MacLean on LinkedIn, probably the easiest place to find me. I think, as you say, I think this is an incredible program. I know that tech and easy connections weren't in place when I was launching into this industry, and so it was a lot more sort of block and tackling, finding your way. And so I guess what I would say is, for anyone that's listening who's not part of the program or thinks they can benefit or have some desire to either impart and share some of their experience with somebody that's newer in the space, or somebody that is in the space looking to kind of continue to evolve their learning and become that much more successful and well-rounded, I think this is a wonderful idea. I would encourage everyone to jump in, and there's the professional growth. I think there's the personal growth. I think there's just there's something beneficial, I think, in sharing, both as a mentor or a mentee, that you can't quite put your finger on. But I think when you're able to step back and see people to continue to be successful, I know many in my career paid it forward, and I benefited from that. And if I can do the same and see a guy like Ariel grow in his career and have the kind of success that I'm quite confident he's going to have, then that's incredibly rewarding to be part of.
Ariel, you're next. Any final thoughts? And how can
get a hold of you? I definitely, anyone in multifamily that has thought about joining Tara's group or is not sure, do it. Just do it. I mean, it's such a great program. And what's so nice about it is that you can be as involved as you want to be within Tara's group. I was super lucky, and I was paired up with 2 mentors within, I think, like 2 weeks, Tara, right, of joining. So it was pretty quick, which was awesome. But there's so much benefit, outside of the mentor-mentee relationship joining Tara's group. So do it. You won't regret it. And then those can find me on LinkedIn, Ariel Guzman. I have a little gem next to my name, and I'll be coming out with more content. So stay tuned on that. But thank you so much again, Adrian, for inviting me on. It's been a great time.
Tara?
I think we're safe. So first of all, I want to thank all of you for not only the platform to talk about this, but Brock and Ariel for just being a success story, being willing, for filling out the questionnaire in the first place, not knowing who's steering the ship and if I could do it. There's something to be said about that. But I do want to specifically mention, before we get off this call, it's about the people in this group. I don't mean to sound cliche, but I want to just, if you don't mind, name a few specific people who have stepped up and really made this group something special. I'll first just say the folks who have taught us about their passion: David Lorenzen, Dr. Debbie Phillips, Chris Moreno, Faith Barker, Gary Gregory, Tony Harris, Barbara Savona. We have a ton of people coming up: Kendra Butterfield, Vanessa Grayson, Joe Summers, Brian Rosenblatt, Shakora Connor, who have agreed, picked a topic. We've got them slated. They're coming up. But I will also say Lori Agudo and Joseph Knack have been kind of 2 of like the biggest referral platforms. We have a large amount of folks in this group who are on the speaking circuit, who are teachers for NAA. They are putting this group in their presentation now. Like I can't even thank people enough for what they're doing. I know I'm probably missing some people, so I'm going to thank all 215 plus. I actually, a few new people joined today who I haven't had a chance to welcome yet. But I'm telling you, it has just been like, when I tell you this gives me goosebumps, it's just because I feel like I'm meant to connect other people. I want to leave a legacy of just connection and mentorship. And if I can do it this way, this is what I'm looking for. And, this is my passion. It's purely volunteer. I don't get paid for it. It's just my payment is watching this type of result. So I just want to thank you all for that.
And I do want to thank you all for taking time out of your day today to be a Multifamily Chronicles, to talk about this wonderful program, to talk about, the dynamics of your relationship, mentor-mentee relationship. And my door is always open here. If you want to return for another episode, let's do it. I'm about,
love it.
Let's roll with it, right? And Tara, keep up the amazing work. I'm a fan. So if you ever need anything, just say the word and I'll be here for you. Thank you.
I appreciate it so much.
Everybody, thank you very much for watching us today. This is Multifamily Chronicles. I'm your host, Adrian Danila, and I hope to see you back here soon. Have a great day.